What's going on, everyone?
Hi, Don.
Hope you can hear us over the wind. You know what they say, you can't spell wind without winning, am I right? Oh.
Well, that's a good start.
Thank you.
I wanted to thank for the intro. I didn't realize I had a PhD from MIT, but now I do. Thank you. No, I'm a dropout, so I almost got a PhD from MIT, but I'll take it.
He's a stage 1 MIT PhD.
Stage 1, yes. Working on getting to stage 2. Speaking of stages, should we talk about the shitstorm that Vitalik unleashed a few weeks ago?
Yes, we should get spicy with it. Okay, I'm super down, Marek. Before we do that, I just have to say, though, I feel like this is we've been on stage many a time, but this is a monumental first moment because we have brought our teams together in a new level, and Celo is officially a part of the Superchain as of a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Woo! Yeah. We're excited. Honestly, this has been something we've been working towards for quite a while, and so we're really, really pumped.
Okay, that was me just trying to avoid L2 shitstorm. What do you want to know? What's your take?
What do you think about it? Are L2s relevant?
I think L2s are relevant. Can you believe it? What a shocker. I mean, I think it's interesting.
Are you scaling Ethereum?
We are scaling block space that extends Ethereum. Of course, L2 block space is different from the Ethereum block space. You know, it's interesting. I mean, you know, early on in the Optimism journey, we realized a really key feature that we needed to have was this at the time what we called literally Ethereum equivalence, right? Which feels in many ways very contradictory to this narrative of like L2s need to differentiate, right? And ultimately, I think one of the things that was underappreciated, and one of the things that's different from like don't launch just another EVM chain anymore. I totally believe that, but I also think it was a very important like stepping stone for us to be able to do that. And to us, Ethereum equivalence was always as much about reusing the Ethereum infrastructure as it was like literally being an equivalent developer API. Especially in those early days, the dev API was super important. But what we realized was like, we don't want to build on a foundation that is coming from nothing. We want to like stand on the shoulders of giants. And like that giant was and is Ethereum, right? So I don't know, to me, it's almost like a graduation moment for the L2s that we have like gained the capabilities of being able to differentiate and extend. And I think we couldn't have done that if we hadn't started building on Ethereum and like getting the core, like, you know, the fact that you were able to migrate onto the OP stack from being an L1. To me, that's like, was only possible because we built on the foundation of Geth, as you did, and everyone kind of knew that was the right approach, so.
And that was one of the reasons why we actually picked OP stack was because of that approach. So, hell yeah.
Amen. So, I mean, looking forward, I think differentiation and like expansion is the name of the game. And like, I would point at Celo as like a great example of this, where you guys have done a lot of amazing things building on the OP stack, adding new feature sets. I'm curious how that's going, by the way. How is it being an L2? Like, I feel like you have had some time to ruminate, and like the transition happened and it's successful, and you're on the other side of that. Hopefully everything is going well, but I would honestly be more interested if it's like not going well. Like, what are the pain points that you want to see as we continue to differentiate? Like, give it to me straight, man. What sucks about being an L2?
Yeah, and that's a good question. Yeah, so definitely a few things, but I think maybe starting with the things that have gone right. You know, I think it's been about a year now since we transitioned to an L2. It's been quite a ride, and I think primarily because by being an L2, we were able to actually increase our rate of development and our rate of shipping, in large part because of some really great partners, both Optimism, but also some of the folks in the Optimism ecosystem. I see Succinct in the house, or I saw Succinct in the house. You know, it's just been really, really wonderful. We spent, in the last 12 months, we did 4 hard forks, which we never did as an L1 in 1 year. I think the max we did was 2. And I think that's just a testament to the OP stack and you know, the amazing ecosystem that you guys have built that we were able to keep shipping just amazing software and amazing improvements. And so I think one of those improvements was, of course, launching ZK fault proofs with OP Succinct Lite. And we're really excited about that because now we effectively are in a position where we truly are inheriting Ethereum security for the L2. And so we finally transition from the L1 with our own security model to an L2 that really you can credibly say is inheriting Ethereum security. And so we're really stoked about that, and we're really stoked about L2 Beat and the rating that they've given us over on the Validium and Optimism tab. But those are the things that have been going well. The things that are not going well, I would say, we get. It's kind of ironic. As an L1, we had one block finality. We had our own BFT protocol that we built. We had our own proof of stake consensus protocol that we launched before Ethereum. I think we were the first EVM chain to launch with proof of stake, and we had one block finality. And so a lot of people who are actually using Celo day to day, moving money in and out of exchanges, are now saying, what happened? I used to be able to deposit into, say, Bybit really quickly. Now it's taking, like 30 minutes, 45 minutes sometimes. Why is it so much longer? And of course, that's because as an L2, we're waiting for Ethereum finality. And Bybit's really conservative there, and it takes quite a while. And so that's, I think, one thing that isn't working well, and I think that's one reason why we're working with Espresso right now to bring Espresso into the potentially kind of OP broader ecosystem. We're super stoked that their tech can allow us to give basically 2-second finality with Espresso economic guarantees, so different than Ethereum economic guarantees, but still, I think, useful for smaller transactions and useful for deposits and withdrawals from centralized exchanges. So I think that's something that's coming. And certainly, I think, it's not just L2s, it's really, frankly, all of Ethereum that has a finality problem right now. And obviously, people are working to improve that for the L1 as well. But for now, I think Espresso is an interesting kind of stopgap for us.
I feel like I've got finality problems as we got to make that a t-shirt. That's interesting. So basically, I think what I'm hearing is like, there were pros and cons to the transition. Like, it allowed us to move a lot faster. It gave us a bunch of flexibility. We shipped more hard forks than we had ever been able to. But also, it came with some of the L2 design trade-offs that make those things easier, bringing challenges on the other side. And so you're going to work towards innovating on those fronts, too. By the way, this wind is freaking crazy. Oh my God. I just have to tell, I feel like for the online streamers, we're in a tent that is being like, it feels like we're about to be blown away. Like, what's Wizard of Oz style? And I feel like, I guarantee you that is not coming across. And they're just like randomly seeing us being like, whoa, the wind. Super interesting though. Well, I guess one of the interesting questions is like differentiation on the tech side versus on the ecosystem side. So I would be also curious to hear from you, like what's going on in the Celo ecosystem these days, like maybe in ways that relate, maybe that don't. You've also been doing like huge alt-DA numbers for a long time, and I'm curious on that. But I don't know, you were introduced as a co-founder of Self as well, and I feel like you should tell the world, the folks in the audience what that is too.
Yeah, definitely. So I think one of the interesting things about Celo's origin is that when we built it interviewing people in emerging markets and trying to figure out what a normie would need a blockchain to do for them to solve their real problems. I think it's a very fundamentally different approach to building a chain than, how I think a lot of other chains came into existence.
The only blockchain developers that talk to normies. Well done, well done.
The only. I don't know if we're the only, but we were among the earliest. And I think, if you look at what Celo is today and what other chains are today, like it's very clear that approach has led to a very different outcome, and it's easy to see why, right? Like if you're building for people in emerging markets that don't have access to traditional financial rails, you're going to build products that replicate the things that you and I take for granted, right? So one of the biggest products on Celo is MiniPay, which is global Venmo. By Opera, the public company. If you've ever used their browser back in the day. They're an amazing company. They've done great work in the browser space, and now they're going pretty hard into kind of the self-custodial kind of fintech space, and they have an amazing product with 12 million users and counting that is just really taking off. And that product can exist today because it's using some of Celo's features. It's using the fact that you can pay for gas natively with stablecoins on Celo. It's using the fact that you can send money to phone numbers on Celo and not just publicly derived addresses. And it's using some of the mobile enhancements that we've done early on. And the end result is a product that normies can use for things that are other than speculating on meme coins, right? Because if you're building a chain for people who have access to all of these, financial tools that we take for granted, then what else is there to do on these products, right? Like you already have a bank account, you already have Venmo. You don't need this. So naturally, people gravitate towards, fun, kind of speculative casino type use cases. And you can just see the user bases are just very different. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't a place for speculation on Celo. Actually, a lot of people are speculating on gold on Celo right now in MiniPay. And I'm sure that trend will continue with other assets. But I think starting with the real use cases that are solving problems that the existing financial industries in those countries aren't solving, that's basically been our go-to-market. And I think that is what has led us to have these very specific features, right? Like we worked really hard to add this fee abstraction feature way before account abstraction really made it into the zeitgeist in the broader Ethereum ecosystem. And even now, with all of the EIPs that have been created, it still isn't really ubiquitous throughout all of Ethereum. Whereas it works just wonderfully on Celo, in MiniPay, and actually soon Ledger Live is going to announce it as well. It's going to be really cool. And so those differences are pretty great. And I think we're pretty excited that OP has now embraced differentiation. I think this has been maybe a bit of a change for you guys. And so I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are and what your journey towards where you are now has been.
Yeah, journey to customization. I think, I spoke on this a little bit earlier, and it's like very much related to this whole Twitter narrative we saw a couple of weeks ago. I think in some sense, it's like, there's one framing of it that if you're a Solana bro, you can like, oh, the L2s are parasitic and nothing's ever work and it's all multi-sig and blah, blah, right? And yeah, it frustrates me sometimes that the Ethereum community can like set itself up for these kinds of dunks, kind of as some of the marketing goes out, right? Mm-hmm. On the other hand, I think there's a more positive framing to look at things, which is effectively a graduation moment for the L2 ecosystems. And like I said before, at the end of the day, it felt like, it feels in retrospect, it was hard to tell at the time, but in retrospect, it's obvious that a prerequisite to being able to differentiate is being able to do the same thing well. And that was really, I think, what was happening. Like, it's funny you talk about account abstraction. Like, fun fact, the earliest version of the OVM, like the first Optimism software, had a really janky version of account abstraction that was like not even integrated into Geth in the way that you guys are, and it was a horrible experience, and it like incurred a bunch of technical debt. And what we realized was that like if we're going to have a basis for any of these differentiations, we need to be as good as the Ethereum thing itself. And like we are standing on the shoulders of giants as L2s, and like Ethereum is that giant. And like before you climb up to the shoulder, then you can reach a little further ahead. So to me, that differentiation story is like, it almost feels like we've earned our stripes to be able to go and do that. And like, there are a lot of different ways you can interpret the public narratives, but to me, that is at the core of what's happening here. As far as like what that means, I mean, one of the huge areas that I'm very excited about is like differentiation in the sequencing space. So one of the things that we are seeing is customers coming to us and talking about different ordering policies and different things at that level. And the good news is like, because we decided to stand on the shoulders of giants, we have a nice modular environment where we can start to think towards how does it look like to define a specific sequencing policy that doesn't require going through every single part of the stack and making a bunch of spaghetti code edits on top of spaghetti code, but actually like has a little module for us to be able to do that. And obviously it's like wonderful that we're at the point where just launching another EVM L2 is not a news flash anymore. That's because we have a lot of them with a lot of success. So I don't know. Does that framing make sense? It's kind of like a graduation moment for us, disguised in different words, I would say.
Totally. Yeah.
I think the other interesting story of sequencing is that kind of like, it is actually related. So I don't think you were here for the earlier panel that we had on like benchmarking and different workloads. And this is the other, but I think this is another thing that I would say is like we're starting to see different workloads emerge on different use cases. And some of these things end up being tied together. Like it's probably the case that the way that you build a sequencing policy and that you do block building at the level of a payments focus is different from what you need for like a hot state of everybody speculating on the same Uniswap storage slot, right? And so being able to differentiate at that level is interesting. I even think in the end state we'll probably end up seeing like composition of sequencing protocols themselves, where like I can even see a future where Celo has like I'm sending a payment endpoint that is like hyper optimized to be able to get into a block really quickly and easily and be like sequenced in the field of payments. And that differs from where you're seeing gold speculators that are all touch the same storage slot. You might be this. I'll just shout. What the heck? Oh, can you hear me? Is that mic? Okay, I hear myself now. Cool. I don't know. What do you think? What was your reaction? I mean, I feel like Celo becomes an L2 a year later. L2s are disavowed. Like, well, I don't know. What was your take on it?
Yeah, a lot of people came to me afterwards asking, did we make a mistake? Like, did we, knowing what you know now, would you change anything? And the answer is no. For the last year, I've been going around like evangelizing this idea that Ethereum will become the settlement layer of the internet, and that it's just obvious and inevitable that every blockchain will eventually roll up to Ethereum. And I still see that as being true today, even if not all of these blockchains are scaling Ethereum. I think it actually doesn't really matter. The reason this is going to happen is because of the network effects that will form, right? And the reason that it's not entirely obvious right now that this will happen is because Ethereum has slow block times and slow finality. But they're working on it, right? Once all of that is addressed, and once pretty much every chain is using ZK snark-based validation, then suddenly you'll be able to communicate trustlessly between chains across all of Ethereum. And as soon as that happens, there will be no other place that will have stronger network effects for liquidity, for users, for developers. And I think ultimately that will just suck everybody into Ethereum. So I'm still very, very bullish on this future. I think it's going to happen. I'm excited to be, early in noticing this and being one of the first working with our community to be one of the first communities to actually make this transition. Already there's many others who either have followed suit or who have asked us for guidance on how to follow suit. And so I'm very, very excited for more of those L1s transitioning to L2s. And I think, again, Ethereum will become the settlement layer of the web.
Yeah, I think it's like, I gotta give Carl credit for this framing of like, you can't build something decentralized on something centralized, but you can extend something decentralized to be slightly less decentralized in a way that suits your needs. And I kind of agree. It's like, obviously the thing at the top that everyone is settling into needs to be this decentralized thing. And maybe it's the case that you can argue that, oh, well, you're not scaling the decentralized thing if you add a little bit of centralization into the mix. And that's fine. That's just like how it's going to work. And it doesn't like destroy the network effect of the decentralized backbone. The decentralized backbone is the thing that everybody credibly commits into to be able to interoperate in its share. So yeah, that makes sense to me. All right, we got 5 minutes left. You're too humble, Marek. What else can you show? What are your favorite metrics that you're tracking today that you're really excited about in the Celo world?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of on-chain effects increasingly happening on Celo. So one interesting fact, the traditional FX market is a $250 market annually. Quadrillions, you don't get to say quadrillions very often in life, but when you're talking about FX, every year, that's how much volume gets exchanged. That is a very, very big number. And there is no reason for that to be off-chain, right? These markets are inefficient. They only trade 5 days a week. There's so much value in bringing them on-chain. And that's something that we're really excited about in the Celo ecosystem. We've invested heavily into a lot of local currency stablecoins. And there's increasingly just more and more DEX volume happening on Celo, where people are doing these spot FX trades on-chain. Not in quadrillions yet volumes, but we're processing, I think there was $4 billion of volume last month in stablecoin transactions. So that's partially P2P payments, thank you, and then partially this on-chain FX stuff taking off. And I think just in the next few weeks, there's going to be a perp DEX launching on Celo called updown.xyz. And they're going to be focused primarily on these on-chain FX perpetuals. So if you want to do hedging, if you want to do open carry type positions, you'll be able to do all that on-chain 24/7 on Celo. So we're super, super excited about that. So pretty big big stuff happening there. The other thing we're excited about is just agents. Who here has set up an OpenClaw bot, or the 10 of them? Who here has set one up that is spawning additional OpenClaw bots themselves? Yes, a few people. That's going to be kind of crazy when more people start doing that. It's a whole brave new world. And one thing that we've noticed is it's easy for bots to Sybil other bots or Sybil themselves. Maltbook was plagued with a lot of either human-written content, but also Sybil content, right? Like suddenly, if you're trying to create a social network for bots, it's really easy to try to drive the narrative in some direction that you want by spinning up hundreds of bots to pretend to have a conversation over here and make people think that that's actually what all bots care about. Whereas the reality is that it's just really easy to game. And so that's where I think Sybil protection for bots, which is kind of weird, but this is something that needs to be solved now.
What does that even mean? Is it? Yeah, I've been asking this question as well because it's obvious. Like, okay, well, I just have my AI agent write millions of posts but what does it even mean? Is it a reputation? Like, it's not a one-to-one.
Yeah.
It's not like one agent, one vote is not a Sybil, right? That is a Sybil attack.
Yeah, I mean, getting to one agent, one vote is exactly what you want, right? And so the way to do that, Celo has this protocol called self.xyz. It's a ZK identity protocol. You can prove that you have a valid biometric passport or a valid biometric ID card. You can prove it in zero knowledge on-chain, and that basically proves your humanity and your uniqueness. And suddenly, with this, you can then, in zero knowledge, without revealing your name or anything about yourself, lend that uniqueness to an agent. And then that agent suddenly can have more reputation, more authority, because people know, oh, there's only one of these per person that spawned them. So chances are there isn't 100 of these having a fake conversation on Maltbook. And so I think that's pretty interesting, and I think that's something that Self is pretty excited about.
Are you actually, you have agents that have delegated on Celo by Self protocol that have basically, the humans can basically delegated their identity to an agent.
Exactly. So there's someone built on top of Self, someone built Self-Claw. So if you go to selfclaw.xyz, you can go and you can delegate your uniqueness to only one of your bots. And I think that's going to be pretty interesting. And actually, Self-Claw is kind of taking off. Someone created a meme coin for it. and then suddenly everyone cares. And so it's interesting. I think, I mean, there's just an insane amount of new challenges. The whole SaaS industry that exists today, catering to developers, has to be rebuilt, catering to bots, basically. And then that's not to say, not to even speak of all of the consumer things like social networks that everyone is actively now very quickly trying to rebuild for agents. And all of these different applications are going to run into all types of problems. Many of them are going to be, financial problems where, naturally these transactions are going to have to happen on chain, because, obviously these agents can't KYC, can't get a credit card, all that stuff. So we're very, very excited about that future. We're working with developers to build for that future. We think that some of Celo's features are actually really useful. The fact that you can pay for gas with stablecoins is perfect. Suddenly, life is easier for an agent if they want to transact with USDC or USDT. One of the biggest impediments to rolling this out to users right now for humans is getting MetaMask to adopt it, for example. But for agents, it doesn't matter because they construct the transactions manually, right? They can construct the transaction, add the extra fields that we need for them to pay for gas with tokens, and it's just super trivial for them. So that's pretty cool.
Damn, that's good. Yeah, agents enable customization to be not a trade-off against UX.
Totally. And then the other thing that I think is cool, a lot of people got excited about rent-to-human.ai. There's similar things on Celo happening as well, in large part because we have so many users on MiniPay who are eager to do gig work. And
wait, is human AI, is that the thing where the agents can rent the humans to do things? Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, and actually this is another great use case for self, because if you're going to pay a human to do something, or if an agent's going to pay a human to do something, you want that agent to know that they're actually paying a human and not an agent who's just an imposter. So that's another really great use case for self. Not the Sybil piece, but the proof of humanity piece. Suddenly, agents will actually care about that. Maybe even more than we care about finding out if we're talking to an agent or a human.
Amazing. All right, I think we're a couple minutes over time here. I feel like we went from the Celo L1 to L2 migration, the changes in the L2-centric roadmap, customizations, all the way down to the singularity. So I feel like we covered some pretty good ground there. And all in this insane biblical weather, which is very, very exciting. So, yeah, I think that's all we got, guys. Thank you so much, Marek, for joining us. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me.